to another. I always say this, that we need a bookstore anthology because the stories of booksellers, y'all wouldn't believe.
Hey, but what's the oldest bookstore, black bookstore that anybody here has been to or visited or patronized in life?
The Shrine.
We used to have one on 14th Street. Remember, our sister on 14th?
Sister Space and Books.
Oh, Sister Space, yeah, of course. And the Shrine in Atlanta, yeah, that goes back. In fact, I was just at the Shrine in Houston. They still had their bookstore.
Okay.
He took over a bowling alley. He renovated the whole thing many years ago. Any of y'all been to the Shrine of Black Madonna in any of the Detroit, Atlanta?
There in Houston.
Oh,
Liberation?
you said that? Yeah. So you know exactly what I'm talking about. Yeah, absolutely. I mean, beautiful space.
I heard the oldest black bookstore is Marcus
Liberation.
Books.
You said Liberation in on West Coast.
Yeah, on the West Coast, Marcus Books.
Oh yeah, James. Yeah.
One of the things I think is interesting, I have Josh to thank, Dr. Myers to thank for this, is he got me thinking years ago about like the history of just black bookstores in general. I had the pleasure about a month and a half ago, I was out in Los Angeles and I visited Esalen Books. And like, I went out there, got a couple books, and like the next week, they're going online now.
Yeah.
Yeah, the owners.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, I think they didn't want to just continue.
Yeah, by the end of the year, they said that they're shutting down the store.
Yeah.
Marcus still going.
Yes.
Chad, no, hey Chad, what's the oldest bookstore you can think of, brother, that you've been to?
Liberation.
Would it be Liberation?
No, but you said the oldest one that I've been to.
Yeah, I know he know. That's what I'm saying. So I'm asking, which one? What would it be?
But it's Marcus, right?
Marcus is the oldest.
Marcus.
Julian Richardson. Well, ancestor now. I'm trying to think. Yeah, because
How about the one in LA?
that's what he said. That's the one.
Is there an issue with what's going on with Esalen? Do you see that perhaps maybe as a trend in terms of them going online?
No, wouldn't you say it's
Yeah, there's actually, what's interesting is that there's a lot of black bookstores opening right now. Like there's.
I was gonna say, you probably saw the article. Then you probably say you read New York Times every day. It was in the Times yesterday, I think.
Yeah.
Yeah, it was talking about it was a sister in Lansing.
Oh, yeah.
She and her husband went to the mall and they didn't see what they wanted, and so she started a bookstore concentrating on black women.
Right.
And it's in the business section of the New York Times. I will say yes, they covers this. The cover picture is two pictures. It's a picture of a Chinese lady who started a bookstore in Chinatown. Her stock is, I think, and you know, we got to read between the lines. So she took out $30,000 loan, no, $20,000 loan. She had 2,000 titles initially, and now it's a community center. It's kind of like San Kobe, except it's in Chinatown. I thought to myself, you own a bookstore at $20,000. I said, what are you not seeing? And then deep in the article, she's an engineer. She switched and said, okay, she got a storefront because COVID, and so it got cheap. I said, cheap in Chinatown, really? So I'm saying it was basically an ad. You know, now the newspaper is basically they just running ads as stories. So, but the lady, the sister in Lansing, has a bookstore in a strip mall, maybe probably a step advanced from Mahogany, how Mahogany was. And they have a picture of her, and it was two like love seats, one here, one here, one here, one here, a table in the middle like this. And she was sitting there, and then three other sisters sitting on the other three couches. And I would say the place from the picture looked like it was maybe half this room, or maybe less. I thought, how did she get this story? You know, I'm glad to see her. I went and looked, take a second, let me look around and see. And like Mahogany, like, why did Obama pick to type Mahogany? And he should be able to spell Sankofa since daddy's from the continent. But anyway, but you realize this is being curated to the point you raised it, Chris. I mean, the story was about the proliferation of bookstores over the last couple of years and how they're opening, not closing.
Yeah.
Right.
And so I'm looking around here, I'm saying, so, but you didn't interview nobody over saying, y'all picking winners and losers.
Yeah.
And this is on the loser end, but they're against us. So we have to fight, because this is not helping nobody but us.
Absolutely.
Which means it's not helping the people. it's the New York Times.
May I switch the subject in terms of LeBron's?
No.
comments about,
Anyway, no, I'm just playing. Alvin, I couldn't resist, brother. No. What happened? Oh, I'm rocking out of. Thank you. I just came from Texas. I don't want these ancestors to come looking for me. Texas slave narratives and photographs.
in terms of his comments about, the sister in Russia that's incarcerated.
What he said?
Catching flack.
What can we? Oh man, thank you, y'all. Do we want to move it around? Because it's live streaming, right? I mean, the mic. You want to?
I can move around. I can show her.
Don't put you to work like that. We can pass it. Yeah, we just pay. Everybody's there. Yeah, thank you.
But just in terms of, his comments about Sister Grainer,
Yeah.
he's now facing some criticism, backlash about what he said that
What did he say?
it was to the point where she shouldn't come back to America, just based on how they handled the situation of her being incarcerated.
His NBA finals are over, right?
Yeah.
Yes.
What's LeBron doing these days? He's in summer league, watching the games,
Training his son.
training his son, right? So in other words, he's free. Why didn't he fly over to tell her not to come? You need to go, right? Well, he's no Muhammad Ali. Anyway, Nike might have us believe otherwise. But LeBron James play basketball. That's my comment. No, I mean, seriously. I mean, another reason we got to support these places. I mean, we listen to ball players
Yeah.
on politics.
Yes.
Now, if it's Paul Robeson or Muhammad Ali, then maybe. But, Zena Garrison used to be. Anybody remember Zena Garrison?
Yeah.
In Houston, right? Yeah. Arthur Ashe even. I mean, complicated. But, thank you. Thank you, Bob. Everybody can hear me. But, thank you. But, no, seriously, I was serious, but kind of joking too. How are we being driven to think?
Before you answer that, Dr. Carr, I'm so sorry to interrupt.
Not at all.
But to the comment though, there was, LeBron's emphasis was that
Thank you.
she's getting paid more over there. And so in terms of her not coming back to America, it was almost like Russia actually saw her and was willing to pay her that kind of, whereas in America, we weren't even willing to. And so that's a part of the backlash as to why.
That's good.
As to why a lot of our support athletes go overseas, because they're respected or they could play more, or they have the ability to continue and extend their career. But here in America, we would have mistreated them. So that was a part of that comment regarding
Actually, that's even better. Thank you. That makes it even better. Thank you. Does anybody remember the American Basketball League?
Mm-hmm.
Right? No, not the ABA, not the men, the ABL. It was women. This is amazing, right? When we were in grad school in Columbus, Ohio, the women's teams, they have their own fan bases. And been a fan of women's basketball since undergrad. We used to go to the women's games. In fact, we would make a point of going to the women's games even if we didn't go to the men's games because of what you raised on. We went to, and Tennessee State. That was before a lot of these HBCUs started their assimilationist branding of women's teams. At the time, Tennessee State's women's team was the Tiger Gems. Like everybody's heard the Tiger Bells, the track team. A lot of HBCUs, the women's teams were not the lady, whatever the mascot was. Now they're the Lady Tigers. Just stupid. Women's teams had their own nicknames, right? So we go see the Tiger Gems, and I kept doing that at Ohio State. I don't usually go to white college sporting events, even in grad school. A lot of those were our students. But I'm saying, I love y'all, but I'm not coming to pay to watch y'all work on this plantation. I'll come to class since you're an employee of the university. But I would make an occasional exception for the women's teams. Anyway, long story short, back in the 90s, this is after I left Ohio, I think, they started something called the American Basketball League. This was a professional women's league. You remember that, don't you, Erica?
I sure do.
Erica, tell us a bit. So I ain't got to tell the story. It's my friend Erica
No,
Savage.
no.
I ain't seen her so long. You know, she be on Roland Martin. So, Erica, do you remember enough to talk about it a little bit?
Not to talk about it in great detail, but that is how I actually, because I love women's sports, and so it was refreshing to see, as much as I followed the NBA, women being raised at least to a level where their organized sport had been developed into something other than watching high school, watching college, that level.
That is exactly right. And that was the point of the ABL. There was a woman commissioner. The ownership group included a lot of women. And the pitch, it was two things in the pitch. Probably the second thing more important than the first. You raised what LeBron said. Thank you, because that makes sense. That clicks. The one thing was they placed the franchises in cities and towns and locations that had strong followings for the women's teams. So Columbus, because people went to Ohio State women's basketball, they had a franchise. I mean, think about the places where Iowa, for example, I think Vivian Stringer may have still at the University of Iowa at that time. Because, you know, Vivian Stringer went from Cheney to Iowa to Rutgers, and now she's already retired. Sister, of course, you know, she and John Cheney won the national championship. Well, they played for them in the Final Four at the time. You know, John at Cheney, they were both at Cheney at the same time before John Cheney went to Temple. So they put them in college towns. The only franchise I'm aware of, at least the one that comes to mind most immediately, somebody else can correct me if I'm wrong, where the ABL had a franchise that the WNBA has one, is where UConn is. Because remember, they had a casino up there, and the Connecticut Sun, I think, is in the WNBA. But the ABL had a team there because in stores, of course, UConn, big women's press. So those people, but this is the most important thing. That's the second thing. The first thing about the ABL, like you said, Eric, they had a profit-sharing co-owner relationship they were developing with the players. So the idea was the players were going to be owners as well. Well, you know, David Stern couldn't stand that. And that's where the WNBA came from. They put the ABL out of business. You understand? Because the WNBA doesn't make a profit. Still doesn't in some places, but notice where they put the teams. They put the teams where NBA teams are. Now ask yourself, is there a natural base for women's basketball in all of those cities? Of course, the answer is no, but that wasn't their objective. Their objective was to control this rogue experiment with these women trying to come out here and make some money and build. So the question of pay wouldn't just be salary. We are co-owners of the league. It was a whole labor conversation. So our young brother, who, it doesn't matter where you go to high school or college or whatever, you can come in a bookstore and read. Seems like LeBron should have read the history of where the league he's talking about underpaid the players came from. If you want to be revolutionary about it, which I think he kind of does. This isn't no criticism of him. I'm saying, yeah, now keep going. Keep going. Keep going. Because if I remember, was it Cheryl Swoops was the first big star in the WNBA? I think her and Tina. Was it Lisa Leslie?
Lisa Leslie.
Nah, well, yeah, Lisa Leslie, Cheryl Swoops. I mean, they kind of same generation because Houston was winning the championship. Cynthia Cooper, sure was. It sure was Cynthia Cooper. I think there was a little overlap, and we'd have to look it up now because it doesn't come to top of my mind. But remember, like when the ABA, when Dr. J and them went, when they closed New Jersey Generals, whatever, and then the same kind of thing happened with the ABL because there was no professional women's league. So the stars were going to the ABL, and it was just beginning to, and Stern and them boys had to kill that. So, I'm just saying, gender, like race, like class, it's cosplay.
Right.
It's all cosplay. Capitalism, this is women's empowerment. The little girls are going to the game, and you get love in basketball. So now Lathan, little girl, Omari Epps standing at the Sparks game. And I'm sitting there thinking, ABL. ABL. I'm saying, so now they trailed it off, and yeah, everybody got to go overseas to make money, and she gets caught up. And I'm saying that it reinforces a dead end because it's not about self-determination. So it didn't take it off topic, Alvin, because the thing about it in terms of bookstores, the president of the United States, sure, let's support Mahogany. And while you're at it, shout out Sankofa, but you can't shout out Sankofa because this is too grimy. I mean, you know, as Cornel West said, you're a mascot for American imperial power, so you can't be shouting out bookstores that are just obviously. But neither should we have to think that you should. From this room, we're very clear about critiques, analyses, loving critiques, sometimes not so loving. And we should be able to support this place. And not just this place, I guess, what's like this place? That we named that Sawan.
Everyone's place.
Everyone's place for sure, Baltimore, which is part of the network.
Source of knowledge.
Yes,
In Newark, no question, just up in, Newark and May went by there. Can't go. It's Broad Street.
Yeah.
No question, can't go on Broad Street. And that's the whole thing. When we go, it isn't just supporting, and this is the last thing I'll say, and then we can talk some more. I mean, again, I'm not going to go on and on about it. But, you know, as we're developing organically, COVID, how many events have y'all had live since?
We only just started.
Really?
Yeah.
But you had a couple before.
We only just started probably in May.
Okay. And Mariah, when is the screening discussion? Next week?
My turn?
Yeah.
Tomorrow,
Ha. What time?
6 p.m.
Here.
Yeah, that's it.
Oh, excuse me. See, look, the tentacles just reach out everywhere. But the whole point is that when COVID hit, everything shut down. I don't know how many people came through here during COVID. I mean, like the hard COVID, like 2020, the summer, right? So you know that where everybody's sitting, this was all nothing, just tables of books. And the books were flying out of here because this sister had been murdered. You know, George Floyd been murdered. And a lot of white people was buying books, not picking them up. Did y'all have that problem?
Yeah.
Literally just buying a book and forgetting about it. You know? People been talking about that for a minute. A lot of people don't know that they never pick those books up. You know?
I was at Mahogany during the beginning of the pandemic, and it was nuts because because even just before George Floyd was murdered, there was a list going around that white people were circulating on, like, it was like on a Medium article. And
Breonna Taylor been killed, and about Aubrey.
Right.
So
there was like 75 things that white people can do to help Black people. Like, literally, that was the title. And on the top of the list was support Mahogany and support We Buy Black and support like a few other places. But like, because of that list, there was like a huge uptick in sales. Like, and this was just before George Floyd.
Well, let me say
right after George Floyd, it was like it skyrocketed.
Let me ask you. No. Keep it just right quick. Isn't there a Black Booksellers Association? I've been on some of those calls. What's the brother's name? Like when y'all had the big meetings, you been having them on Zoom. Yeah, Troy. Right? Troy's one of like Paul will call meetings sometimes, all the booksellers.
Yeah.
So it wasn't that the booksellers don't know about each other. But white people pick winners and losers. How did they make that list? Is the question I'm asking.
Well, I mean,
ABL,
the thing about it was that, like, Mahogany had got a lot of press because they were the first bookstore in 25 years to be east of the river. And so that kind of put them up here because we were filling a gap that at the time. And
good PR team.
That, I mean, it was interesting though, because Kimon was about to open Sharnice Milton bookstore right at the same time.
Throw a rock and hit Mahogany from We Act Radio and the bookstore, right? He was collecting books.
He was collecting books for a minute.
Y'all know where Kimon Freeman bookstore and the radio station is. We at right there on Martin Luther King. Yeah, right over the bridge.
He just gives away books now. He puts the book cart out there and people can literally just pick the books up any day of the week. Like,
how long had he been trying to do that?
He's been trying to do that for months prior to Mahogany actually securing the spot in the art center. And so then, but Mahogany kind of beat him to the punch as far as like opening the bookstore itself. But it was also that Sharnice Milton was supposed to be a used bookstore versus Mahogany is a new bookstore, like, or new books bookstore. So there was that. But the thing about, I think it was really because they were the first bookstore in Anacostia, and that because of that need, there was so much press around that. Like they got a Steve Harvey, they got an Essence. There was a lot of press. They were even in Vogue. Vogue decided to do an article on them, and it wasn't like they were asking for any of this. They just all of a sudden people wanted to reach out.
But we know sometimes it's a network. Those networks have press. People know people. They make the call.
Yeah.
The next thing, how they get involved because so and so works there.
Yeah.
And once you get in, because they know this place. In fact, it's funny when you run. And then James, I come to you. It's funny when you run into people and you might mention a place like a Sankofa, and they say, "Oh yeah," so, "Oh yeah," but I hear you talk about that when you was on CNN. In other words, people curate themselves relative to just how far they can go without getting put out the pet store. There are a few pets around these days. They have nice carpets, but those books, and I'll come to you, James. Those books that flooded here. And then as it became clear that, no, we weren't going to burn the whole country down today, then the numbers started, leveling off. Oh, we passed it. So here we are today, and we should be able to not only go back up, but build it slowly. And I just mentioned one other thing. When COVID shut us down in March 2020, the last day I was across the street in the parking lot, we were in my car, and I said, this was going to happen. In other words, the universities were going to have to change. You can't keep charging people $20, $30, $40, $50,000 a year for basically networking, internships, and the brand.
Wow.
Yeah, I mean, let's just be candid about that.
Right.
Because if it weren't about that, then they say Jules Harrell always says the university is the faculty and the students, and everybody else supposed to be there to support it. But if that were true, then probably Holly Greenman's name would be on some building over there or something. At least they would have a robust film program at Howard. But we know that has never been completely true, and that at this stage, and I'll quote Scott Galloway, who wrote a very interesting book a couple of years ago called, actually not even a couple of years ago, it came out in 2020, late 2020, called Post-Corona. He was writing the whole time. He's at the business school at NYU, and he says NYU and some of these so-called elite schools are basically hedge funds with classes for the children of the investors, and they let in a few freakishly smart, non-white students and working class students and some ball players, and that justifies their primary work, which is hedge funds. Real estate owners. NYU owns so much real estate. Johns Hopkins. Bloomberg gave him some more billions of dollars to go and say, what y'all doing with your money? So he's saying all that, and so that's unsustainable is what he's saying. And he said when he went to school in California 30 years ago, it's basically the same stuff. You've updated some content, but the same format: classes, exams, curriculum, licensure, branding. He said, so the format hasn't really changed, but the thing skyrocketed astronomically. He said, well, what explains that? Well, these are businesses. And that, Howard's no different. But Howard, at no HBCU, was as equipped as many of these other schools to withstand shutting down. And what Galloway said is COVID accelerated the trend that was already coming. If I can sit at my house, turn on my laptop and take class, why am I paying all this money to travel? And then, of course, you know why. To live in a dorm, to network, to go to the parties. And then there's a good film came out a few years ago. In fact, we showed it. Remember, it's Ms. Daniel from the Founders Library. Ivory Tower. It followed 4 schools. Spelman was one, Cooper's Union. It was a liberal arts college in Northeast, and then like Arizona State or something. And they showed how much money Arizona State was paying to update the dorms, put a mall on campus, have rock climbing walls, because they basically paying to come for the college experience. Spelman, it was about, the whole thing that we all talk about HBCUs, the magic. You're paying for the magic, right? And what's the magic? Well, suffering. I shouldn't say that. Step shows, homecoming. Look, I went to Tennessee State back. How many people in here had to stand in line for registration for hours? Right? Okay, so right now you wouldn't want to do it again, but we narrate it as if we remember it fondly. I remember when I was never did it again. No, it's almost like pledging. You went through the trauma, and then the trauma becomes part of your identity. I said all that to say that. Oh yeah, it must be that. I said it to say that Galloway is like that's unsustainable. Well, if that's unsustainable for NYU, what is it for Howard, or Hampton, or A&T, or any these schools? Well, of course, once the Breonna Taylor, Ahmaud Arbery, George Floyd blood money flowed a little bit in 2020, 2021. And a lot of HBCUs took credit for having fundraising prowess. No, you should break off like a tithe and give some of that money to all their families. Why? Because it ain't like you built a robust development unit or you closed. And I remember standing in that parking lot as the sun went down. It was March. Spring break was the following week, and we knew we weren't coming back after spring break. I thought to myself, okay, this is when we jailbreak it. In other words, it's going to reopen, but it ain't going to be the same. The world is closed now, so if it's a flat thing, nobody has any advantage over anybody else. If you got a internet connection that can stream, people sitting at their house, D Nice did it. You know what I'm saying? He stuck in his house. 2 years later, they figured out a way to corporatize it, and now nobody care about verses. Why? Because the corporations got it. But at the beginning, it's just a flat. So, came across the street here, and upstairs, with the crack Sankofa film team, clearing it, with the general. We got cleared with Holly first, but we taped the rest of my introduction to African Slaves classes and just put them on YouTube. My approach is now, let's give it away. Let's give it away. Let's give it away. And then, of course, which is why we have Nubia and Narrative, Karen Hunter, one day I'm on the phone at the house. She said, oh, can I press record? Sure. We started uploading that, and little by little, we're building institutions. And so fast forward, finally, 2 years later, here we are, back in person. The first year at Howard was hilarious and tragic because COVID's still raging. Well, they had to. If you've been at home in your pajamas watching class, and then you come back here and see a roach, unlike us, I think some of that was about class.
Oh, class, okay.
Yeah, I'm talking about, yes, class. No, I'm talking about, not that anybody should tolerate substandard conditions, because if the place been closed for a year and a half, not just Howard, anywhere else, everything should work now, especially since people that gave you some blood money, you could fix everything. Unless, are you adopting a hedge fund mentality? What you doing with the money? In other words, are you trying to be a black version of the NYU model? Scott Galloway done told you what that is, but you could have fixed everything, theoretically, it seems to me, unless some other things going on. I'm not saying know everything, but about that situation. But when campus opened again, all the campuses, all of us, we're still scared of getting COVID. I mean, I've had my mask, but you know what I'm saying? You're right. But in the fall of 2021, we were not on campus, but the students were. So what did the students do when the faculty weren't around, which means no really adults around? It's a bunch of 18, actually two freshman classes of students. Well, they got on campus, they looked around and started running up and down milk cartons right over there at Banneker Field. Then had a big party in the valley. In other words, it's almost like, Black Lord of the Flies. In other words, there's no adults. It's 2 generations of 2 years of teenagers on campus. Here, for the main reason a lot of students come to school, and when it's time for class, I get up, walk from my bedroom to my living room, open the Zoom, every book I want and think I could pull from that. And I'm thinking, I ain't never going. I ain't never going. And on the weekends, 2 or 3 hours at a time, doing what I would be doing over there, and I wasn't alone. Meanwhile, the wheels are turning. Master class. But see, that ain't what we do. Everybody got exposed. This ain't a one-off lecture, 2 lectures in a row. if you are a teacher, like anytime you come, if you can catch Professor Green over here and he's in the mood to talk to you, it ain't gonna be the same talk. You come over here every day for a year, and it's gonna be the same kind. So Spike Lee doing a master class, with all due respect, if I watch that and I paid the license, that's cool. Okay, what's next? Well, you gonna say the same thing? I don't. Okay. So what I'm saying is, we are now in a position to build the kind of institutions we want. Because anything that was pre-COVID that survived, much of it is limping along. And the things that came out of that little period that are coming out, that emerged, including Sankofa, which is still here, with not as many books around, because the margin of error is non-existent. You got to be real careful now, don't you? In fact, I'm gonna give you this microphone. I want you to talk about that a little bit, because we now have an obligation to continue the work we started when COVID hit. We can do that. Erica tell you, Roland built a whole network. Roland Martin, you might not look. I know Roland will come after you. He came after me. That's how we met. And then Twitter beef, Twitter sniper, talk fast, all kind of thing. He keyboard gangster, you know what I'm saying? But then if he was here, like, yeah, I said it. I mean, that's how it is, right? But I tell you what, though, Erica tell you, any dime he made, 10 cents of it going right back into the Black Star Network. In fact, probably 11 cents, because if you go give a talk, you're gonna take that money and put it back in. And I'm saying, now we have a network. And we still trying to look at Morning Joe. Morning Joe is a white nationalist. And Eddie Glaude is my friend. He can't say what he need to say. Come on over here. Yeah, but they ain't got no money yet. But if we had money, most of them black people they would probably be over here. But guess what? By the time they get here, we already here. So you can come, but you can't talk. Why? Because in the moment you could have said something, you didn't. So you failed the test. And that's fine. You can still come. But we've already established. And I think Sankofa got to be one of those places. That's why I asked how many things y'all done, because, we're back in person. I know James wants to say something, but go ahead. Say something about what we need to do.
We need to buy books, yo.
That's simple.
We need to buy books, because I'm gonna say it like this: people come in and expect to see what they see online on Scamazon. And I say Scamazon because it's a scam, because they think that because of the convenience of Amazon, people assume that we as a small black bookstore should meet that standard. And that's completely unfair. And it's not even like it's a black problem, it's a small business problem, period. Like Amazon has duped everyone into thinking that you're supposed to get things 5 seconds after you order it, or that you're supposed to have, I'll say this, books are published and they have a set price by a publisher, and Amazon literally undercuts the price because they can't, because they can stand to lose the money, because they have plenty of other departments to substantiate.
Like the WNBA and the NBA. we can lose the money as long as we put you out of business.
But the thing is, when those publishers make the prices, it's so everyone can eat off that book. It's so the author can eat. It's so the editor can eat. It's so the publisher can eat. It's so the bookstore can eat. And people don't know that. So they come here and they're like, why are y'all books so expensive? Actually, we sell them at retail price. We sell them at the appropriate price, not what Walmart and Target and Barnes and Noble and everyone else can sell it for. We're selling them so that everyone can still eat off that book. And it's kind of, it hurts me personally, because I've been in three small bookstores, and it's the same issue. It didn't matter even at Kramer's. Like, people ask, well, how come this? Well, how come that? And I'm like, part of me has to realize now that when you're in something, like when you're in this business, you're obviously just gonna know more about it. But what I understand about the book world now is that people have undervalued books because of Amazon. People don't expect to pay full price for a book anymore because of Amazon.
That's true.
And so now we look like the bad guys, and people call it the black tax. It's not the black tax. This is what it is. This is the actual price of a book. And so because of our American spoiled consumerist life, like we think this is what it is, but really what it's not.
Let me mention something as you said there, Chris. Even as I look back and realize these are books that are being sold for $5 and $10 a piece. How many copies of Asada are sitting over there? Anyway, the point is, so that's very deeply discounted.
Right. These are used books because someone was kind enough to donate them to us. So that we're able to sell them at that low price because they're used. But that's not typical. We typically don't sell used books. We're trying new things right now because it's that deep. And people just assume that Sankofa is gonna be here.
Right. And that's not guaranteed.
It's not guaranteed.
No, in fact, I mean, yeah, exactly. No, I just wanted to mention it as you were talking about that, the reach of, again, glad we're streaming, because I know with us, with Narrative and Nubia, so many books have been bought at Sankofa and Black bookstores, as we know, right? Because Narrative, which is the platform that Karen Hunter created, it's a subscription platform, but it's a low price, relatively speaking. And then we just keep adding content. And, for me anyway, as hard as I've been trying to work in that to continue to build, I'm just at the beginning. We put a whole Introduction to African Studies class over there that expands even beyond what we do over, at Howard and other places, and keep recruiting people in so that people will say, okay, I don't have to pay tuition to go. And then, if you're a kindergarten, K-12 student, if you're a college student, you just somebody, forget institutions. Anyone can come into space and do, but that type of support really, because you don't have to move the inventory, as we know, through physically here, and then these spaces can kind of open up for other things as well. So that's one thing, and the second thing, and then James and us say here, because a lot of books here, again, Amazon is not a bookstore in the sense that. And this is from somebody, I mean, obviously buys a lot of books. They will price things based on their algorithm and what they think. But like, you take Marimba, I need, Let the Circle Be Unbroken. That's a supply chain. You talking about Bob and IT in Baltimore, it's everyone's place. That supply chain transcends Amazon. So they go looking for it and they don't think it's in print. So if you go on Amazon and look it up, a book like that might be $300, $1,200, right? Because you can't see us and we don't want you to see us. So while at Hampton or Morgan or anywhere else, the selling thing at a lot of these HBCUs now has become, we will train you to get a job so you can go to Amazon and help them diversify, meaning what? Locate the book and bring the price down. In other words, diversity, equity, and inclusion, I think is what they call it. Yeah. All right. Or you can build your independent institution. We can't put Amazon out of business. And guess what? That's not the objective. Our objective is to build our institutions, because guess what? It's going to collapse. I know some of y'all know it's during Amazon Prime right now. And the union put some on social media yesterday, saying during Amazon Prime, here's how they've extended the hours for everybody who has to deliver stuff. Here's how they extended hours at the warehouse. In other words, they are crushing these folk who are in there working like hell while people are saying, Amazon Prime, where's my deal? Where's my deal? Well, it shouldn't even be our mentality. I mean, Baba Fukiao, that book there, that orange book, that book is in Amazon is going to price that book something astronomical because they don't know that we can get that book and get more. To Be African, Bernie Goldman and Marimba Ani and Baba Kobe Cambone. Cambone was an ancestor now. That book is, I mean, when they put that book together, you can't find that book anywhere, but we have the supply chain. And there are books all around this wall, all around here, that you can only get. And that's not only because that was something, it just so happens, it's not accidental. Yeah, because you got some Black people who are not in the business of doing something other than building for our people. And Nati is one of them. You know what I'm saying? Sankofa is one of those bookstores. And for every Children in the Sun, Baba Rafu and them who went out, and we remember Pyramid across the street. I don't remember Chad Bozeman, but I know I bought books from him because we used to live in Philly and we would drive down here to come to Pyramid. And that was in the time when he was an undergrad. Of course, he worked over there. So I mean, it's like, it isn't accidental that these spaces have things that evade their grasp. And it might seem like a rounding error for them, but as this little funky country dissolves, it won't be dollars and cents that determine who has the most influence and what comes next. It's going to be how we built our networks and our sensibility and our consciousness. And these places, there's too few of these places left for us to let them slide, because now these will be the places where we convene to build a different world, because that's inevitable. It's coming. You mind because you get James? And then
Just two quick things. One is I think that.
Oh yeah, thank you. Yeah, we all please introduce yourself, Professor Morgan.
Good evening, everyone. Do I have to introduce myself or I'm home?
Yeah, because you got a couple of new books
Oh, Lord.
out. You know what I'm saying? The Amazon will overprice because
Oh, Lord. Actually, I gotta get some
the master historian.
I'm James Morgan. I'm a Howard alumni from the class of 2011, and I'm currently up at Morgan State University. Half the reason I'm there is because that's the name that my mother and father gave me, so I get to wear shirts.
Right.
But it's two things real quickly that you all sparked in my head was that one is I think that part of the magic, one of the things I've always loved about Sankofa is the community aspect as well as the books. I think whoever's idea was to put a bookstore with some food and some drinks and everything, I think that's great because it really does create a community aspect here like none other. I mean, I've had both Highly and yourself as actual classroom professors on my Howard transcript, and that creates a different level of, I think, community and also accountability as well when you think about some of the folks that you all were talking about. The other thing that I wanted to kind of pose, and I don't know if it's been done already or maybe it needs to be done, but I think when we think about maintaining Black bookstores, there needs to be some history done on the bookstores that have existed before. Like I'm thinking about Mr. Michaud's bookstore in Harlem, New York, and there may be others I'm not aware of, but like I think that even the history of that supply chain, like who put Sankofa into the supply chain network? How did that work out? I think that that's something that needs to be thought about because it's valuable and the value of it needs to be protected. But if you're going to protect it, you have to understand where it came from before someone else comes in and figures something out, and infiltrates like they do. But that's kind of my 2 cents.
Hey man, what's your latest book? Jay's a master historian, genealogist, but particularly in the Prince Hall Mason.
Well, I worked on Alton Roundtree's book. It's called "Give Us Free: African Lodge Masons and the Abolitionist Movement," which came out on Monday. This week.
The first book you wrote, you won the award.
Oh, my book, The Lost Empire: Black Freemasonry Old West, which is not available on Amazon, but you can get it at Sankofa.
That's very important. But let me say something right quick, and then as the microphone comes back, I know there is I want to be careful about this, man. Thank you. Normally, thank you. And again, Chris, I want to recognize that he doesn't have to say a word, so maybe he will. Holly is still here. He and Shrikiana is like the visionaries who created Sankofa, and I'm just glad you hung out because he should be somewhere working on his film. He's always working, and so for it to be this late in the evening, on a day where he never takes a day off, I just wanted to acknowledge he's here. So he's laying in the cut, but at many times in this room, how many people? I mean, what's the earliest y'all started coming to Sankofa? Anybody? 2018, 10 years ago.
No, maybe 20
Junior, 20 years ago. Okay. So you remember the many things that have happened in this room, the many people who have been here, some of whom are ancestors now. I remember one time Carlos Moore was here. You had Carlos Moore up here. And when you get like true revolutionary who've been community workers and global Pan-Africanist and don't agree, and you sit there like, it's gonna be a fist fight? And these are like whole legends. That ain't how it was. That's and then now the point is though that much of that was recorded because this is the stock and trade. So there's a whole archive, which leads me, James, to what you said it made me think. We always knew the university wasn't going to save us. Professor Myers hadn't said anything, Josh Myers. but hopefully maybe he'll say something here about this because we're both very keenly aware of this, and he teaches that. He just finished teaching his leg in our summer school class we had this summer with students. The university, Fred Moten, Stefan Harney, they might say, the university is theft. I don't care if it's black, white, polka dot. There are people researching what you said. Anderson Thompson at Chicago used to call it slave rebellion research. In other words, academic books written about black bookstores. Somebody gonna stumble upon the supply chain as a topic. They might be black, they may not. They'll be at a university with hella resources to plunge archives, to sneak up and try to stick a microphone in Baba Nati's face. And when they can't get him to talk to everybody on North Avenue in Baltimore to try to piece it together. And then they'll publish it, and it won't be, well, there is no Howard University Press. They won't be NYU Press. It'll be NYU Press, or it'll be University of Pennsylvania or North Carolina Press. It'll win all the awards. 300 people will read it. And it will be a discussion of how the black bookstores were really an exercise in American democracy. No, I mean, that's how they do, right? You know what I'm saying? Slave rebellion research. This is what Anderson Thompson said. So they're going to write that story. The question is, are we going to write it and tell it? Well, even if it's not first, because the other thing is, this is what they do. This is what universities do. And then, of course, these people become the people who are whispering in the ears of policymakers who are trying to drive our children to think that they should aspire to join them. So when they're in school, their whole dream is to go somewhere and become one of these academics. I was very serious. Jailbreaking. In the words of Killmonger, Black Panther, burn it all. You know what I'm saying? And anybody who says that we shouldn't, I'm saying should be forced to make the case for why we shouldn't. Because this drives our young people in particular to aspire to that. And what it really does is just deepen the class tensions. Because I think everybody wants to help the race, but how are you helping us by making knowledge look like something that's foreign and you got to bring to the people? Those stories that you're talking about, Jay, those stories come from the people. We start talking about, I said supply chain because that's the language of schools of business and that's it. But quite frankly, we're talking about networks. And so whether it be Sister Una, and I know Chad remembers the Liberation Bookstore at 125th Street, those, who inherited that in some ways as a relay race from Richard Moore, who I didn't know, but I knew John Henry Clark, did anybody know Richard B. Moore? Richard B. Moore, of course, and his bookstore, Freddie Douglass bookstore. And then when Human came, anybody remember Human? I remember going to Human in Denver, right, Chad? Then when they opened up in Harlem, and Sister Una was up there fighting Giuliani and them about trash and trash collection. She got a sweet plate. She had nobody to give the bookstore to. You know what I'm saying? I remember she was fighting, wrote her up in the New York Times. She's in there, a dying institution. Magruder was a whole legend. Her father was one of the captains in the UNIA ships. And I'm saying all that to say that in 2022, somebody will write her biography. It won't be for us. They'll win awards. They'll make her whole life about American democracy and the promise of democracy. And everybody who knew her will laugh if they even hear about the book. But Sankofa will have a copy. And if you come here, I'll buy it from Sankofa just because I'm going to have it, because I read those books for the footnotes. Me and Dr. Myers, people like us, we just read the books for the footnotes. I want to see what source I did, because your interpretation is not only worthless, when it comes to black folk who are writing those books, you write up some of them right up on the edge of race traders, as far as I'm concerned, because you know better than what you writing, but you want with your whole heart for these white folk to give you a little petty to pet skill. And it's sad. I understand it. We all got lured into proximity, but you can then make a choice. And I'm saying we can make a choice to jailbreak it. And when I say give it away, I don't mean, from a pedestal in a mountain. No, as Kwame Ture and everybody else said, our history, our community is made by us. These are not stories to be filtered through a handful of academics. These are stories to be collected and convened and preserved. And in the case of Sankofa, because y'all keep a camera going, there's now decades of conversations that aren't anywhere else. And now we just got to figure out how to help this collective make them available so that people can come in here or wherever they are in the world and say, okay, now I have a blueprint. Conversations that just aren't anywhere else. Go ahead, Bob.
About to follow up. First, thank you for being here. I appreciate it.
Thank you for being here. Thank
Absolutely.
everybody.
So a lot of what you said resonates because I went to GW Law School.
Mm-hmm.
I'm from DC.
I really, yeah.
We met.
You
Yes,
talked
sir.
about that, yeah.
And this is the first time I'm actually saying this in public forum, but one of my goals is to create a Black bookstore that sells herbs, that sells cannabis, that sells tea, that sells the whole full gamut. And what I also have recognized in creating like a book workshop with some of my friends, where we don't just read books, but we do something about what we read, and tie action to the books. Two things is that I'm gonna say brothers, but you know what I want to say. Brothers are not reading books.
Another two syllables.
Brothers aren't reading. They're not reading books. I went to law school, and I barely I do my best to read, but they're not reading. I mean, even in the book workshops that we do, it's okay. We talk about these concepts.
What do y'all do in the book work?
So what we do is the last one we did, we read "Read Until You Understand" by Ferris Griffin.
Yeah, my favorite.
Amazing. And then we had a kind of like a picnic where we ate, talked. I set up a GoFundMe, raised $700. I bought $300 some worth of books from here, $300 some worth of books from Mahogany.
Yes,
I gave them to my friend who's also a DC native. He teaches at Friendship Public Charter School in Southeast. I gave we gave all those books to his first grade class.
Wow. Okay. See,
And
there's a model.
so
Y'all streaming, y'all see all over the world, right? We all live in places packed, by the way.
so
No question. This is the new world, the renewed normal. We can be everywhere at once, right? Go ahead.
So I'm trying to figure out, while I work and try to maintain the semblance of living, how to tie what people read in books to change, to progress, because until something that I read in one of these books changes my life, and I tell you, and I can see it, I can care less. Not me, I'm saying just the people that I'm coming across, my friends who I love dearly. They necessarily don't have the time. They might want to support me, or they might not even have gotten the education or know how to read some of these books. But I also can recognize that reading the books, it's the knowledge is more substantive. You can hold on to it. It's not so quick and feeling like candy and social media.
Yes,
it's you can hold on to it. It sticks to your intestines. If you
What
get what I'm saying.
would Farrah say? What did she say? You said the book was fantastic.
It was.
Go on. Why you smile behind that mask.
Continue to read until I understand.
Exactly. No, that's a cop out. You read that book? She ain't got no answer.
I mean,
She ain't got no answer.
I'm doing my best to continue to work, to continue to build and network, but I'm racking my brain for answers. That's why I'm here. I'm talking to the gentleman Simbasana next week who started Caribou Books.
Of course.
And so I'm the history that you talked about.
Yeah.
I started a podcast. I know about Drum and Spirit, I wasn't here for it.
Anybody who remembers Drum and Spirit? Yeah, absolutely.
And learning about
if you go over here in front of the office building, DC office building on Sundays, Baba Kwasi over there and Mama Kim selling books. They tell history of Drum and Spirit. They over there every weekend selling books right there in that corner. You see, we got the tables laid out. So yeah.
Yeah, and so I guess I'm looking for answers, for solutions to problems that do seem like the Mountain Ellen.
Let me say something right there. Am I going back over here again? Yeah, tell me. I need to be in the rocking chair. But I would say this. Just quick. So I would say one phrase, maybe that intellectual word is in itself that transformation. It's not the only thing, but without it, we know. It's amazing, isn't it, that you could go to law school and figure out ways to minimize reading. No, he know. I went to law school 87 to 90. That's where I met Derek Bell. In fact, he came to Ohio State. Spoke. I mean, this is the period. That's when Clarence Thomas was ensconced on the Supreme Court. Remember those hearings in 91, the year after I graduated. You couldn't go to law school and not read. But even then, a lot of our classmates, I know of Leaky Watkins, our colleague Leaky Watkins, we went to law school together. She's over at Howard. We used to have fights in the Black Law Student Association because we had colleagues who were trying to minimize. Okay, where can I get the shortcut? And we reading the Horn book. You go to law school, you know Horn, right? The Horn book is like the restatement of law in the area, contracts, torts, civil procedure. This is not the case book. The case book bad enough. The Horn book is like the summary of the area of law, right? And then the theory behind, so why are you buying a Horn book? Man, they know it's Horn books, they're green. And because we want to know. You don't need to know that. Okay, these are the Negroes you want to avoid. Many of them will become rich. Very few of them will be able to discuss the thinking behind it's almost like a good plumber. You want a good plumber when you spring a leak, but you can learn plumbing and the theory of why you even framed it that way in the first place. They don't want it, but the theory, just show me how to join these pipes and I'll pass the bar, go make some money. That's so dangerous. So when Farrah wrote Farrah Jasmine Griffin, South Philly, now at Columbia University, many years at the University of Pennsylvania. I first met Farrah when we were in Philly. She was working at Penn. Good sister. She's recently published a book, Read Until You Understand, about that whole process of why it's important to do that deep work. I'm glad that y'all picked this. Thank goodness I've been relieved of duty. We don't have to teach freshman seminar over there no more. Administration in their infinite wisdom. Reducing to the lowest common denominator, like at a lot of schools. Again, if it's about entertainment, you really don't want to push these young people too hard. You know what I'm saying? So let's get more fun in. Let's see about no problem, anyway. Plus, we have a renewed normal and we're jailbreaking the place anyway. We'll figure out when they turn the lights out. But anyway, the point is this, and I'm not wishing that, I'm hoping quite different, but you got to understand that over the arc of this long struggle, the fight, and Josh has written about this in his book on the Howard takeover in the 80s and connected it. The fight for the Black university is real. Some of y'all were in that fight. HBCUs are not Black universities. They are white universities with Black people in them. And because they have Black people in them, that's what makes them the Black university. It isn't the framework. It isn't the curriculum. It's the people there who force the conversation, whether it be students, whether it be faculty, whether it be administrators. You got to keep pushing that Blackness, but it's pushing up against a framework that was never designed for us. So that fight is a perpetual fight at these institutions. And it is the most African pieces of those institutions that sustain them in our imagination as Black. So the band, homecoming, the occasional professor or the student relationship. But if you look at the framework, as a white, of course, it's the university. You know what I'm saying? That's why we still walking around in hot robes in May instead of taking these robes off, getting some drummers and dancers and recreating our ritual. No, I'm going to be a monk. I'm going to wear this monastic robe like they were wearing in medieval Europe because the university has traditions. You are a whole slave in your mind. You know what I'm saying? But me too, because I have mine on. I've made it out of African cloth, but it still don't matter. I still got it on. You know what I'm saying? I haven't taken a step that when I was an undergrad, one of my professors, Amiri Al-Hadid, at that time, Andrew Jackson, before he came out as a Muslim, he teaches Black nationalism class at Tennessee State. He never wore a robe. He would always wear his African clothes. He have a white agbada and come. You know what I'm saying? Of course, he's still, because I would tie to this read till you understand piece. Now, when I graduated from law school, I did get the courage. I'm not wearing no robe. So I was the only one without a robe. I had an African piece on, and that means I didn't get a hood. And they hood you. And so, but I have a hood. I have a law because everybody else rented theirs. And when we walked across the stage, I'll never forget, Richard Thornburg was the attorney general. Remember the case they just overturned? It wasn't just Roe versus Wade. It was Casey versus Planned Parenthood. Remember the abortion cases. Thornburg was the attorney general, and I wouldn't shake his hand because, of course, this was these guys, they've been after Roe since Roe.
When he governor of Pennsylvania?
Yes, exactly. Casey versus Planned Parenthood was a Pennsylvania case. That's right. Thornburg and boys was against it. I'm not shaking this man's hand. But the guy who was hooding everyone was the guy who was, I think he was voted professor of the year that year. It was a black man named David Williams from Detroit. He taught federal income tax. David Williams would come in the room, 150 students, and he would say, I know a lot of y'all had parents who were lawyers. You grew up in law firms. Y'all been doing taxes for your whole life. He says, I'm not talking to y'all. Who in here is scared to file their income tax return? I'm teaching to you, everybody else is eavesdropping. He was a master teacher. You understand? He's an ancestor now. But brother, Dave Williams, as I'm walking across the stage, one of only a handful of black faculty at Ohio State, Dave Williams took his hood off and put it over my head. I said, man, he said, no, you take this from me. At the end of graduation, everybody else had to turn their robes in. I tried to give him the hood back. He said, no, that's yours. So I'm the only one in my graduating class with a hood, but I wouldn't wear the robe. I'm just saying that. Anyway, the point is this. This is in spite of the structure of the university. The intellectual work that you are fostering, that we're fostering here, that we're doing in narrative, that, this thing, like you said, with Roland, the Black Table. I interview a lot of authors, people who are elders, ancestors, people should know, or not ancestors, thank goodness, but elders. And, these are the things they've written, they've talked about. I said all that to say that demystifies for some people that process. We have to, I'm gonna say what we have to do. It will be better for us. See, we ain't gotta do nothing, right? Stay black and die. That's what people used to say. Or stay black and live. But say try, right. Freedom is in the trying. Right? But that work, that intellectual work, and you know this from experience, you're doing that. I just came from Zoom, but our Philadelphia Freedom Schools, we're in our 22nd year. This summer, we're reading a book that we read in freshman seminar last fall. Should equality education be a constitutional right? And these are teenagers. And when I tell you they are tearing that book apart and putting it back together line by line, we don't ask for GPAs. We don't want the students. We want anybody who want to come. And for 20 some years now, we have the students who, the number one criteria is that you want to work for your people. And that's a different kind of mentality. And then when you set that bar, they don't just meet the bar, they rewrite the rules. They are rewriting the rules. We just finished Imani Perry's chapter in there on the Constitution and quality education, state law, federal law. These are students that during the school year, they might say, oh, these students don't like to read. No, you haven't required them to do it. And so I'm saying, like to say that a place like this and work like we're talking about, like if we were still doing freshman seminar, I know that's one of the books that we'd probably be looking at, Ferris book, Read to Me, Understand. I don't know that I would pick it because, again, any narrative that ties us to how we've been perceived by other people starts with the deficit that may not be able to be overcome. So, for example, we've read the work of Aikwe Armand. Not 2000 Seasons, but a book, we read his book, which one? The Black Book, per Ankh. Oh.
Starts with a W.
Thank you. The way, we did read The Eloquence of the Scribes, The Way of the Companions, right? We read The Way of the Companions and we read The Eloquence of the Scribes. Because what he does is he ties that intellectual tradition to classical Africa, comes throughout the African continent, it comes on the boats with us. And anything we've encountered during this little 15-second trauma we've endured and are emerging from, we absorb into our long arc of intellectual work. The Way of Companions, absolutely. Because what it doesn't do is say, Brother Douglas learned how to read, and hold on, we invented letters. Why are you starting reading with somebody who, to get his or her liberation, acquired the skill to read an inferior language to begin with?
Afro-pessimism.
Well, yeah, I mean, that would be us. Like, we would talk about Afro-pessimism. We might be one of the 300 or 400 people who've read Frank Wilderson and debating it, whatever. Or we could just get some books like these and And if a young person wants to start with Black Panther, no problem. And then we come right across directly from those books to these and say that everything in there is inspired by everything in here. But if you like that, wait until you can read the language for yourself. And then when you return to it, you be like, why didn't y'all take the time to study the language in those comic books? Oh, okay, no problem. We got next. And then, or better yet, go up to the left, and those McConan ones up there, those are independent comics. The one next to it, EXO, that's a whole series that's by a Nigerian comic book writer. You just know I like comic books, so you know what I'm saying. There's a whole world. That sister right there, Ibi Zaboy Okoye, you know, we thinking Black Panther, but that's the same sister that wrote the one on Octavia Butler, wrote the little long praise poem on Octavia Butler. People are writing all over the world. The American Negro has reduced literacy in some ways to this almost performative kind of thing. So we don't pick books that make reading look exceptional.
Wow.
We pick books that make reading look like our responsibility since we invented it. And then we move from there. Seal, you gotta go. You come back.
I think you answered my question.
You should ask anyway, but before I know you got 10 seconds, I want to at least introduce you. And if you got something to say, I'm gonna pass this mic if we can reach that bar. You might have to come up the aisle.
I just thought that you said that they weren't gonna have freshman seminar.
Oh, they're gonna have it. I don't know what it's gonna be.
But you're not gonna be teaching it?
No, ma'am.
That's gonna be crazy.
Oh, I'm sure it is. But hey, we got work to do.
Listen, man, I don't know why you're giving me this. I don't know what you want me to talk about.
No, you should tell. Miss Daniel works, and she's a reference librarian at Howard. And this is a trained librarian. You know, they're almost like an endangered species. So you might want to talk about your experience as a librarian, not only at Howard but the network.
I can't because I will get into trouble.
Oh, that's true. Oh, well, you know what?
I'm still in the plantation. Yes,
Me too.
No.
This your man right here?
Yes. He's now working in access services. And
You've been hoodwinked. Run them up, brother. Let us straight. Why would you?
I was not even properly introduced to him.
What you mean?
And this is the same problem, the stupid.
It's maroonage.
Yes.
Maroons find each other. So it didn't matter.
So, but you rise above and you meet
No
your
question.
people because he's a brother.
Yes.
You know what I mean? And so you have that same kind of nonsense. It has not left. Let me tell you something about Dr. Carr. When this pandemic thing started and they said that we're going to go home, I figured we just go home for a weekend. So Greg came up and he said, Seal, this is it. It's done. It's over. Pack all your books. Take everything, your plans and everything and get out. So I said, but we're going to come. No, we're not. We might come back, but it's never, ever going to be the same. And I'm saying to myself, what's wrong with Greg? My brother, yesterday I went over into your space, or what used to be your space.
Yes, sir.
The door is wide open.
No question.
Even though me and Josh try to, I don't know how people get in there and anybody could do whatever. The place is dead as a doormat.
No question.
It's horrible.
No question.
So if you're not going to be doing freshman seminar, that's the soul of the university that's gone.
Wow.
Somebody is putting a dagger into the heart of that university without
question.
even realizing it.
No, they realize it.
Well, then they don't give a damn.
No, they give a damn. When you hear the voice of your master.
Come on.
You ever been at RCA? You said RCA when it had a little dog listening to his master's voice? That's what you talk.
I mean, so, I just I'm nostalgic because it's one of the reasons I had a fine job in Canada, doing very, very well. At the height, I came to an HBCU, and since I came there, all I was doing is fighting niggers to do my job. And for the 20-something years I was there, Greg is the person that gave me life. Because because here I saw somebody who was doing something for black people. Right? And I said, if he could do it, then I could do it.
There you go.
And we had a program that we worked with, Africana Film and Discussion, until pandemic.
That's right.
And, and then I used to make guides for his books, for freshman seminar and all that. But the kind of fight you have to fight with Negroes because Negroes don't like to see what you're saying. I used to think that people didn't like me as a person. But it's not me.
It's not person.
It's what we're saying. They don't want. They don't want like this.
Right.
You better be careful.
Come on.
So anyway, I love you. I love everybody.
No
Look,
question.
I have a garden. Hi, how are you doing? I have a garden. That's one of my
No question.
something that helps my brains, So I have to go to the garden before it gets too late.
Amen.
All right.
We won't keep going for long. Let me
So we're
just
gonna
say.
talk.
Yes, ma'am.
And I can't see my brother.
You know you gonna say. Look, let me say this about Miss Daniel though. I'm saying this why you here, Seal. Year after year, you don't quit the battlefield. Just like I give you hope, you give me hope, and we find each other. And we've always found each other. And this isn't different than any other year at Howard, at Lincoln, whether it be Missouri or Pennsylvania. They're all, and I said this one time in the Atlanta University Center, and they laughed, and I said, I know y'all don't believe it. Then he started laughing. It's one big HBCU.
Yeah.
Now, I mean, with a lot of different locations. I told him more, I said, I know y'all don't like that. He started laughing. I don't care.
something about university presses. University presses are inaccessible. Okay, that just, you don't see them that much in many bookstores because they're so expensive. They don't give anything. They don't leave any room for bookstores to actually buy them. When we have the few university presses we'll have on the shelf, we're not making any money. We got it here because it's a good title.
And because y'all started buying them, like Gerald Horn's books.
Yeah.
Those books are already, yes, you got a lot more university press books than most black books.
And that's only because our wonderful bookstore curator, Jonathan, he recognizes the clout. I mean, the titles that these people have. They're what we want to read, but we're not making anything off of it. We're doing it for y'all. Like, we're not making any money off of those university presses at all, and it's because Black people want to go with these university presses, or the white people that like to write about Black people, or write through or university presses, and they think that, oh, we're changing the world, we're doing this. You're not. If you publish with Black Classic Press, yeah. If you publish with Third World Press, yeah. Publish with Baba Haki. Like, what is this? I want to understand, because it doesn't make any sense. I talked to a sister recently about publishing. A lot of people are now publishing with Amazon, and it's because, it's a double-edged sword, because there's this. The ivory tower that the publishing industry has made in terms of like getting books to the public and getting books published, period, has created this system where now like people want to just self-publish. And so Amazon is here like, oh, we'll foot the bill. We'll do the whole shebang for you. All you gotta do is pay for a cover, pay for some edits, and your book's out. That's it. You don't have to go through all the red tape, And so now it's like everyone wants to publish through Amazon, but it's not. It's still a part of the problem. Amazon is not, here to serve us. Say that one
Who owns the copyright?
The Amazon.
Oh.
You don't own your copyright when you publish with these. When you publish with that Amazon, you might share it, but you don't.
At a minimum.
You don't own it. You're not like. Amazon's driving the book market to solely be with Amazon. There are now Amazon published books that you can only get on Amazon, and they're not even selling them to bookstores so that you can get them.
Right.
So they're like, ostensibly we look at Amazon and they're like, oh wow, this is great. We could self-publish, we could do all this, and we're taking back our,
It's like
we're taking back the power, and it's like. But you look at the small. I mean, they're not small. The Black Classic Press is one of the largest Black press in the country. So it's Third World Press. Third World Press is like the oldest Black press in the country. And the thing I love about Baba Haki, and I still haven't met him yet, but that's coming. It's coming.
Who has been in here talking about this very same thing many times, as we know, sitting right.
Is that he said that, when Toni Morrison was at Random House, that she asked him to. Come on, Don, I could publish you. You could be out here.
Sure.
And he was like, nah, I'm good. I'm going to keep publishing, and I'm going to keep building these Black institutions, because that's what I'm here to do. He said, I know I'm not known as well in the land of the letters as I should be, but that doesn't matter to me, because I was over here building Black institutions. And I'm like, where are the Black people that are supporting the Black institutions?
Right.
That's what I'm saying.
That's right.
Like, y'all think that Sankofa and the rest of us are just going to be here. And it's not just that we're going to be here. We have to actively participate in the sustaining of the Sankofas and the Everyone's Places and the Third World Presses and the Black Classic Presses. I just met Paul Coates last week, and he was like, I said, I want to be a publisher like you. He said, don't be like me. I'm a broke publisher. You see what I'm saying? He's not a big five, but he's our big five. Okay,
yes,
like
bigger.
Exactly.
He has the machines.
Exactly.
When you buy from Haki,
printing the
Paul is printing the books.
It's like, it doesn't make any sense to me. When,
He's our big one. Because I don't think there's another printer. Is there another black printer?
this
He's the
thorough
sole
press print.
No, I'm
No,
saying.
they-
There you go. Now that's what's waiting. There you go.
Oh wait, look, Kylie look like you want to talk.
I just want to say this. I think to me, one, I just want to say one thing first, so I'm in context. One is more than the COVID. Obama is the biggest COVID that I felt that I felt displaced the black struggle, and it's swaggering. The black struggle has not recovered the Obamaist, interjection in history that completely destabilized the continuity of black struggle that was built from 1970 all the way to now. That, everything Du Bois, Stokely, Baraka, Toni Morrison, whoever you have, your favorite revolutionaries, they built, they repaired what I felt was the most critical aspect of the black struggle, and that is continuity. Black people in America, in Africa, in Brazil, one thing is waged against them every second is for them not to have a sense of continuity.
Yes.
They always are the only people who start everything ABCD every year, every 20 years. The first black shit this, the first black crap that. That itself is the mental state that has destabilized black people. And then came the revolution of 1970, the Black Panther, Black Power, all with all its deficiency, but still the Black liberation movement began to repair the umbilical cord. Critical than any book or anything is continuity. And black people, there's nothing black people are doing on this earth they didn't do when they first crossed the ocean. In the Middle Passage, some chauvinist black nationalists think they invented the dashiki or the African connection. Black people in the 14, 15, 1600 in Mississippi, Alabama, they had a Senegambian organization. So don't give me this idea that you discovered Columbus, America shit on Africa. And so what is very critical is, however, for me, is everything that was built, continuity, because every 20, 30, 40 years, America goes through changes. Black people lose again the sense of continuity, and we look disoriented, and we are disoriented now. For me, when Obama destabilized, and I will explain that, but let's say Obama, because black people are very contradictory. They will criticize if Bush did what Obama did, they would be like talking shit about him. But black people were caught in a very compromising state of existence because of Obama. They could not get critical on the brother because he was black. So for me, that's what Du Bois, Fanon said the pitfalls of black nationalism is perfectly illustrated during the time of Obama. So now we come here, the COVID came, as my brother Carr. Two things happened. Younger people may not know this. I'm a very old, shrewd warrior. And I know two things happened. One, suddenly first aid black healers arrived in the scene with Obama, part of Obama's entourage. And those are the first aid, I call them like, first aid is like how to not be racist book, how to be sensitive to niggas or some shit like that. All this voodoo snake selling, oil selling books came out. And they were selling. People came here, white folks came, black folks themselves, the bougie middle class people also were studying how to not be racist books. Okay, then Carr came on YouTube. Then we found those black people we know who come to our bookstore. They come from Kentucky. I met a sister and brother from Ohio. I met Chicago. I met Detroit, Texas, Dallas, because the YouTube Carr is doing was our biggest marketing help we got to stay up to where you have found us. Okay? For me, I don't care if we don't ever exist because I'm not going to be this bougie black man doing the business. No, if I got to go down, we got to go down. We can't sustain it. We got to go down. What I mean by that is in a desert, unlike some of the discussion that's romantic, sentimental, black, unlike that, there's no black bank in America. How the a black businessman, black businesswoman, what kind of loan is she or he getting? Give me a break. We never qualified. We do international production. No white boy or girl could have done what Sharik and me have done in film. We do co-production internationally, yet we never qualify bank loans in America. So don't give me that is what I would say. What we have not done is that we have not created consistent, independent, with sense of continuity of black existence in all spheres. Black bookstore is not going to save black people only. It's in all aspects. How can I say I want to exist highly in Shurikiana or Sankofa books, and black people are gentrified every second out of Washington, D.C. And I'm going to say this bougie store, fuck it. It should go down, it should go down. Because black people are evicted every day. Okay? Homelessness. How in the hell would I talk about book now that black people don't read books? Look at go to Fifth and New Jersey. See how black people of all ages, okay, are evicted at 6 o'clock in the morning out of the shelter. And you tell me we're not bougie sitting here. We're not bougie sitting at Howard. Howard to me, I was very happy. Howard has been a very important in my life because I would never have met such precious kids I met. Not all of them. There are a lot of sellouts, CIA agents, FBI, I knew that in my classroom. But I also met the most precious kids I would never have come across. That is that guy also. Carr. The students he touched, the transaction, the intellectual transaction he created in this crazy plantation, So to me, I'm just like confused. Even today, sitting here, for example, we talk shit about sport, yet we don't even own the sport. We be like, it's a plantation, okay? Hollywood is a plantation, and black people have always worked in white people's plantation. And so why are we all of a sudden losing our sense of center of gravity into survival gravity? I don't get it. So for me, let's now look at isolation a bookstore. Sankofa is not only fight. Sankofa is one if it exists. If black people are going out of here, why would I want to stay here? Okay? So gentrification is the enemy of black people from day one. Gentrification is the enemy of Native Americans. Why do you think the Trail of Tears happened? Why do you think the black people were shipped into Oklahoma? Why? Why? Because white people needed space. You always have to move. They've always gentrified colored people. And so I'm saying, I think look at it in broad terms, that we are experiencing the repercussion of gentrification. And gentrification is not only house, real estate, no, it's also intellectual gentrification. Okay, mental, cultural gentrification. Is really rap the end of black people's music? What the hell is that shit? No, rap was supposed to come and black people have always leaped and frogged into space and music. This is the first time we're stuck in one note. Every black kid's commons knows how to do this, but it's not moving us an inch. Why? Because it has become a very routine pattern of keep the people, smoke and move that. And sound is dangerous. Fascism uses sound. Now you've seen CIA bombarding or Ortega or that guy they surrounded. How did they get him out of by sound, by noise? Noise is also imperialism. Noise is also fascism. Black people could be part of their own destruction if they never control their own thought. It's about thinking, to reflect, to think, but it don't make the revolution. You look at it as a tool, like the way a mechanic looks for a tool. Books are just giving you an experience. Revolution is made by inventive generations that are firebrand. We're not seeing them. I know I'm a fertilizer. I'm not a revolutionary because I wouldn't play with books, so I would be carrying a rifle. So revolutionaries are yet to come. Or the best we can be is good fertilizers for that to come. I'm proud of being fertilizer. I think Sharik and Amir, this is what we're doing. If we stay, your support. The other thing is this. I think just 20 of you here, I'm sure you have a basement, you have a room. You should have a book organization. Don't like tell me you're gonna have, like a lot of my black friends from Hollywood, they're gonna bring me a chunk of money someday. I'm still waiting. But I think you have a base to push black struggle. Not only black books, black banks, black collective community, collective existence, collective discussion, especially in digital time. The last thing I want to say is digital era. Our kids are occupied kids. They're captive kids. Okay? Facebook and what are that shit on, I don't have it myself. That has occupied our children. Well, who are we talking about to read a book? Our kids are captive population. With our own mistake, maybe, their own mistake, their own corporation, our kids are captive prisoner of cultural war. They are prisoner of wars. And the breakout should work how to quantitatively help them break out to be not necessarily read this book, read that book. I just want them to at least be silent for a second. I just want them to reflect for a second. So because I know and I believe they will find their mission.
Yes, sir.
And how do I make my
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
So, the last thing I would say is how can I make my children, my own offsprings, and I'm talking about like our children at Howard, our kids. I built this for Howard kids. I bought this for Howard kids. Sharik and me had in mind black kids need to go away from Howard to think, give them space. The porch there, she built it for the porch there for Howard kids. So they would be just not bothered. I don't care if they don't buy nothing, just to be free from the plantation. I know I worked 43 years of my life. And so the most revolutionary thing I would like us to happen is by some kind of miracle, black people to have a silent gap to reflect and repossess themselves. And I think the COVID, a whole lot of the black middle class went into much more bigger noise. I'm sorry, they were not by themselves. They were out of the window saying, yeah, ha, do. I thought about it, I reflected. I wrote 3 scripts because I said, I'm not gonna vegetate and allow white America kill me. And so I would say, the most important thing is individually. Don't worry about the other black person. Individually, you. What are you doing outside the plantation you work? I don't care where you work because I can't judge you. To me, I thought sometimes I'm an agent, an FBI agent at Howard University. How would I know I was not getting some money from the CIA? I don't know. Howard was a very compromising place. But I think individually you should promise to yourself to create a moment with young people of silence. Just staring at their grandmother's wrinkle, if that's revolution. I don't want spastic black people who are going to pick up a gun. I want deliberate, conniving, prudent black people to come on earth, not gullible black people that I see intoxicated, thinking they're in power now. As far as I'm concerned, black people think they're in power. In America, this is so bombastic, okay? From Hollywood to universities, black people think they run America because of this whole Black Lives Matter shit, and everybody was terrorized. White people were looking for fragility book and that. What happens? It's a false power. We've seen it every 20, 30 years. We have seen it. So I'm saying I think black people need to be silent, even to improve their music. The black kids to restore their music. Gaps. No music is without a gap and silence. Like shadow and light makes light, So his sound is made by silence and noise, note or pitch, whatever you call it. And so I think a revolutionary thing we can do as fertilizers is get our kids, repossess them one by one by one, like a guerrilla warfare, away from being captured by the digital imperialism that our kids are subject to. Thank you.
Right. No, I'm good with kind of like that be the word. You need the word. You said the conversation.
Yeah, I did have something just very quickly.
Yes, ma'am.
After you, no, ma'am.
So Dr. Carr.
Thank you.
So,
Thank you.
so we attended a lecture by Dr. Michael Blakey on Monday.
Oh yeah. I saw that advertising.
Yeah, so he was here to speak on the Bethesda African Cemetery Coalition.
Yes.
So I'm familiar with your connection with the African Burial Ground in Manhattan, New York. So can you please share your connection and your experience with that as well?
Yes.
Thank you.
My spirit, thank you. I just wanted that we could let what and just highly when he does that, it's always bars. But when he does that, and this is just matter of fact, that's gonna happen every time he goes to his mouth. That's such a blessing. I almost wanted to say, well, even now I just kind of started talking. But these last couple of times, just on that very quickly, Mike Blakey, of course, who was across the street for many years in Howard, and left, and of course, William and Mary. His young protege, Mark Mack, who worked there in Douglas Hall with the Macabre lab with him. And he, Blakey, Mack, Jackson, who's now on faculty at Howard, and others were part of that New York African Burial Ground team, of course, as we know. And that story has been told so many times, and I know many people here already know that story. If there's somebody streaming or somebody doesn't know, I won't go through the whole story, but just mention that when they were building that federal building in Lower Manhattan, to hear the custodians now of the the New York African Burial Ground Memorial Site, which is now the National Park Services. So that's the National Park Service is responsible. They talk about the fact that as they were building the foundation for that federal building, they began to discover bones, and they were carting the bones off. And there was some construction workers there. And I've heard the story different times from different people, but one figure seems to always emerge as this Afro-Latino brother who was working there. And he saw what they were doing. He rang the alarm. And from the 5 boroughs and beyond Jersey, here comes the Black community, laying down in front of the bulldozers. Stopped because they discovered this was a burial ground for our people in the 17th century, 18th century, 19th century. And so because they found bones, so they had to stop. And we know the story. Like I said, most people know this story, so I won't go through the whole thing. It reaches a head when they begin to bring in experts, because now they want to see who these people are. So Pace University takes the lead. And these Black people was like, hell no. These are Black people, black hands. I'm sure Mike told that story. You know what I'm saying? And a lot of those people, a lot of us in this room know. Mother Melba Franklin, for example, who's an ancestor. He used to be a long-time Star Water, First World. There's no question. Her 45th comment. Black folks in study groups, Brooklyn and Harlem, and coming from wherever. And they stopped it. And the feds they created a consortium of a team to study, global team, but it was led by Black people. And when they said, well, what university? And this is to the point that you raised, Jaime, with all its contradictions, you don't get a right to direct the trajectory of our people, because RHBCU do mean something, and they were able to say Howard because Howard had that anthropology department, which it no longer has, by the way. And Michael Blakey led that team. And for 10 years, those ancestors that they took out of the ground were over there in Douglas Hall. And, Kel's not here. A lot of people who came out who studied that, Justin Donovan, who's in that generation right after me with Josh, and these are all the academics who studied. They were Mark Mack was their teacher after he left, after Mike Blakey left. So our connection finally, after a decade, they reinterred them. They sent to West Africa. They had hand-carved caskets made in line with Kente. They brought them here. And then they started the ritual here in D.C. They moved from D.C., Baltimore, up the East Coast. They came through Delaware, Wilmington. They had rituals. They came into Jersey. They came into Philadelphia next, Mother Bethel. And in each stop, they did rituals, libations, because they're going to now reinter the ancestors. I remember that first ritual. Oh man. Oh no, that was later. James, in fact, recorded that libation. Something I said that. I think about no. When they brought the caskets out of Douglas Hall, it was students dressed in black, and they took them to Rankin Chapel. And some of those elders that laid out in front of those bulldozers came from New York to Rankin Chapel for the first of the rituals. And they had a few of the caskets there. Eleanor Traylor read a poem she had written for the occasion. Choir sang. I think Pat Swigert was president at the time. Yeah. And they brought those caskets, and then they went from here to Baltimore, and they came in every place. They had convenience like that, but this was the first one because it's who their ancestors were. And so when they got to New York, after they were on the Jersey City side, or they came across the Hudson, and they stayed all night drumming and dancing. So we went up. So those same students who took them out of Douglas were then trusted to bring them into the big crypts, because they put the smaller caskets now, they weren't stretched out as human beings, they put them on, so they, as if they were standing or laying. So they put them in these, I think, 7 crypts, and people wrote letters, threw them into the hole there, into where they had dug. They put flowers, and then they lowered the crypts. And it was, what a ritual. They had flooded the whole lower Manhattan. If you ever see Law and Order, the courthouse there, it was over there. I mean, that's where that whole square. In fact, if you watch Law and Order, after they finished, police or the people that arrest you, the DA's officers who want to put your black ass away, these are their stories. If you ever watch sometime on the camera, if they pan from the courthouse steps over there, you will catch a glimpse of the burial ground. Sometimes you will see a glimpse of this West African statuary that is carved. There's stuff all around there. But they had, everybody, Cicely Tyson, Maya Angelou, it was everybody. They just had a day long singing poetry, and then they lowered the cat. And then the design competition took place, and the brother who won it was Haitian. So when you go to New York African Burial Ground, they had a monument there. And I remember telling this story to my introduction to African American Studies class one morning. And they were like, we want to go. All right, let's go. So we got a bus. And we went to the New York African Burial Ground. And the Rangers, these are black Rangers. There's some non-blacks there. It's great. It's like the United Nations, like New York. Like John Clark said, it's a multinational city. Everybody is there. But it's mostly black folk, and it isn't all just black English speakers like New York. The Afro-Latino. it's beautiful to have that. And they're all New York, they're park rangers. And so when we came, y'all are Howard. And so, obviously, y'all black. And so they're telling them the story. And then the students got to see what it meant. You didn't just come here to go, this is why. When black people needed you, he said, okay, we can stand in the gap. So when we took over the freshman seminar, we started doing that trip in the fall. We got up to, one time we ran like 3 or 4 buses every weekend for a month, because at that time we had like 1,200 students. You couldn't take everybody once. So every weekend in October, or late September, October, we took all those buses going right going.
I went.
Yes. In fact, James, I think that libation you took, that was before that. That was the intro class when we went there. And James filmed it. Now people see that libation. Oh my God. So anyway, and I'll wind this up. The thing about that was, it's been 10 years. I can't believe it. It's 11 years. It was 10 years this May, I think. Mark Mack, who was beloved on that campus, who took it. Mark Mack, at the end of the semester, turned his grades in, met with his students, undergraduate students mostly, worked in the lab. Driving home to Maryland, a car hit him around the corner from his house. And they took him over here to Washington Hospital Center. It was graduation weekend. We were at the dinner. The Dean of the College of Arts and Sciences, James Donaldson, whose idea was, who supervised the whole publication, because they published 7 volumes of New York African Burial Ground Project, Edna Medford, Selwyn Carrington, so many others. That Dean Donaldson made sure that happened. They don't make things like that anymore. I'm sorry, I should say that and say, hear me across the street. They don't make things like that anymore. This is a different generation. Different generation. We were at the dinner when we heard Mark had been in an accident. So we went to the hospital. He was on life support. He never regained consciousness. We were coming out from holding his hand. He was saying, when his parents came in from Ohio, they didn't know what the condition was, and nobody said, we back on time. He said, he's upstairs. I don't even know what that moment was to bed like. They took him off the machine, he made transition, and we renamed the trip the Mark Edward Mack New York African Burial.
Wow.
So I don't even think Mike knows that. Yeah, because by then, the thing about it is, as Seal said, your people will punish you sometimes. I'm sure he didn't want to leave here, but he had to continue to work, and that was more important, which is why you could see him give that talk that he gave. And so that's a thumbnail story of the New York African Burial Ground. We don't do I don't do freshman seminar anymore, and that's fine. Somebody else doing that's great. In the fall, we'll just take the same bus up there we was doing with and anybody who want to go. In fact, since we jailbreaking, we'll just have to get that, whatever that date is, we'll just go. In fact, we can run out of here, right? We just go. Because I'm going to tell you right now, Jimmy Cleckley and all the Rangers, he's the lead ranger at the New York African Burial Ground, he's going to be looking for us in October because it's been 3 years. So he's aware of all that. So we come, we'll be back. And when you go, when they see us, it's like whatever happens anywhere else, when they see us, like Holly said, it isn't the contradictions. It's the idea that, we are a family and a community, and they welcome us. And then another generation of people who are there visiting get to hear their story. And they have a little documentary that they play, and the children, the young people are watching, and then when they see Douglas Hall, it's, oh, that's us. Yeah, that's you. Now you know what you got to do. So, James, before you go, let me get her. Thank you. Yeah, I'm sorry about that. Oh, no, thank you.
Appreciate you. Bless you. Bless you, Dr. Carr. Bless you, sister. Bless everyone. I just wanted to say something with regard to what our good brother just said a moment ago, and the importance of that, particularly all of it, that latter part about quiet and silence. 16 months ago this week, I was hit twice by an 18-wheeler from the back, rendering me with a traumatic brain injury. Had to learn how to walk, had to learn how to read, speech pathology, home health care, the whole gamut. Before that, was living my life 1,000 miles an hour. What I want you to know, Black people, is that for the time that I was unable to do those things, it was actually good that I was afflicted. With me, it was during that time that I said that I was in the womb, but I heard the wind talking. I literally heard the wind talking. I could see the trees sending messages about things that were to come. It was in quiet. It was in a place of not being engaged and attacked by social media that I could literally hear my own thoughts. Fast forward to today, I have a message that I'm going to convey because it's been very difficult to be back on social media. Now, I do not watch mainstream media. Everything that I get by way of news, it is by reading. And so to what our good brother said with regard to quiet, there is something to be said about us if we are fertilizer, whomever that we say we are in this present day and time, that we were chosen to be dropped into time, that it really is our responsibility to model that. Technology, computer, all of those things are wonderful, but we were not built like the computers. We are divine, intellectual, very complex, intricate, divine beings.
And in order for our youth, in order for those that are coming behind us to have that understanding, the people say babies come in the world and they're holding their heads and they're reaching for iPads and iPhones. Well, hell, it's because we taught them how to do that.
That's right.
We give them iPads and iPhones and say, here, keep busy. Instead of just taking them by the river, telling them stories, what we don't know, finding out what we do know, just training them to listen to their gut, listen to their heartbeat, all of that to say the discipline of quiet, the power of quiet is what our good brother said. I believe it is really the intimate beginnings of discovery of who we are. We all have a responsibility, not just to do it, but to model it. Bless you. Thank you to both of you all.
Sister Erica, like I tell you before, we hadn't seen each other in years, and she had a whole world praying for her that whole time. But that blessing came through. You'll never go through that again. But on the other side, that witness that you've been giving us since you have come back, what a gift! Thank you. The ancestors kept you for a reason. Yes.
I like to say. Hi. First of all, my name is Kenna Clemens.
Oh, here they bringing the mic. Oh, thank you.
Thank you. Thank you. I'd like to just say good evening to everyone. And my name is Kenna Clemens, and I am grateful to be here. To Brother Jarima, I want to just say thank you, because you may not remember me, but you opened your studio for our students, the Children of the Sun. And you took us in the back, you will recall, and you imparted your wisdom in us, and you showed us the new film that you were working on that we're anxious to see. And so I just want to say thank you. You are a true Jegna. I don't use the word mentor because I know its origin. I use the word Jegna. And you are that. You are a protector of our community. You stand ready to fight for your people. And you are a protector of our culture. And you fought against DC gentrification, and your courage to stand your ground is to be commended. So I want to say thank you. And I want to say something about Black Classic Press and Brother Paul Coates. He is an amazing man. His contribution to our community and literary and academic scholarship is unmatched. I am the creator of the Classical Children of the Sun African Center. Curriculum was based on your scope and sequence from Howard University for your Pan-African Studies program. And you will recall when I sat on a picnic bench at Howard University and sought your counsel. So tonight I will show you the product of that. And you may not be on Howard University staff, but the scope and sequence for your Pan-African Studies graduate program based on the Dogon theory of learning is recreated now for our children. And Black Classic Press was the printer of that. And so I want to say thank you to Brother Paul Coates for what he has done. Lastly, I want to say that that's it. That's it. I need to know when to be quiet. That's the last thing I want to say is thank you, because that's what Spirit is saying to me. And I'm 59 years old. My husband and I have birthed 7 children. And it's a difficult thing for me, whom we homeschooled. Many of them never went to school. And you will be hearing more about that as we share the Children of the Sun curriculum. But I just want to thank you all for what you have poured into us. And I want you to know that your work and your labor is not in vain. Okay, so I want to say you back.
I think that's a good.
My daughter? Okay.
Everybody, I guess we.
Carr.
Yes, sir.
I forgot one thing.
You got the last word.
No. Say something.
You right there.
One of the reasons I was talking about.
Talking to the world, Bob. Say,
I really wanted to hear him. One of the things about it is I want all of you to know that this Carr is a young man. Okay, he's a young man. He has not yet paid his dues. Howard. So you should know he's getting disillusioned unjustly, because he has no right to be disillusioned. Wow. Because I was there 43 years. So when my friends from UCLA and those filmmakers, we meet in LA, wherever, they always talk about where I teach. They don't talk about where they teach because they have nothing to say from teaching what. They're always negative or positive. We're discussing Howard University, my life at Howard. So his life at Howard, he should know when he gets my age that he is going to be proud of the time. It's not what Howard, what he faced, what etc. But the kind of students that pass through him, the kind of relationship he has, I know better than me, because he's very tolerant, objective. I'm not. I'm always jealous of how patient he is with so many dumb people. It's okay. He's good at that. I give him credit for that. So for me, it's always, all of you remember one thing. He has no right to be disillusioned. And Howard, everything he faced is nothing compared to what I faced at Howard. But to me, the students I came across at Howard University are the pride of my life. Now, he more than I, because he has extensive students. In fact, in his class, I just briefly went to his class and I got more students coming in my area because he exposed me to his students. So for me, I just want to tell him that, yes, administration is not Howard. This new guy is a pork chop greasy brother. He's not Howard. He's passing through like the crud that passes through Howard. But to me, you're a jewel in this mud. You are. And do not give up because you'll be a bad example for the young ones coming. You can't give up. You have to pay your dues, maybe at least 50 years. Okay? You cannot drop out. Excuse me. You cannot drop out. You can't get disillusioned. It's good. Whatever is happening there, you still have your own space. You've created an amazing outreach. You're affecting a lot of people nationwide, internationally. No, seriously, all of you should know that he has no right to retire.
All right, man.
Okay? Because he's, I think I'm seeing some stuff he's saying because I think he's thinking wrong. To me, he stays in spite of Howard. To me, the kids are more important that pass through. There is your mission, and I'm telling you, stop even talking about those negative things because they affect you. You have to know the positive circle you have created. Indulge on that. Help us exist as our community activists, intellectual. I wish I know all the books you know. Okay. He's like a voodoo man. He pulls out books.
He was away this past weekend, and he wasn't home. And the whole time talking to Karen, and he pulled this out, and he pulled this out, and Karen was like, "But you're not at home."
I said the same thing to him because I'm like watching the YouTube lecture, and the books flying.
We love it when the doorbell rings and there's another book.
So before you conclude, I just want to say, because I don't think my young folks would say it, to me, you have not finished paying your dues. And it's very important you stay at it. You can't throw the baby, water, and everything else with that guy. That guy passes through. Okay? The students that you've come across, I know what kind of effect you have on our students and students. I don't teach there anymore, but they come to me. Even now, they come to me after your class, etc. So my sister is here who could also testify. My brother could testify. To me, as far as I'm concerned, it's very important. He is now on track to pay dues. He's coming behind you. And I'm telling you, that's Howard. That's how Black Nation is. That's Africa. Can you imagine working in Nigeria? Can you imagine working in Ethiopia now with all the killing of each other as if a civilization? So our people are not in aligned with their own. What is the sister? Oh my God, you touched me so hard, sister. That's a nice moment. So stay at it. We will not permit you to graduate.
Time, I know, and thank you all for staying. I just have to thank Heidi, and I'm glad he's not he's occupied the conversation now. Again, they're all one place. We all had those stories, and I'm gonna share this one. Is he out of your shop? Okay, great. People tell it anyway. Yeah, none of our institutions are, and I'm not disillusioned. I'm clear. You know, he's very close to Sterling Brown. The abuse of Sterling Brown has never been so. Oh yeah, absolutely. The abuse of Sterling Brown on their campus. But I mean, it's almost like it isn't just again. It's funny how so many of these conversations end up with Howard in them. I would just assume that talk about and or single it out because all of our institutions are ours. You know, I was told by an elder, a Jegna, as you say, told me, you know, when I took the job at Howard, he said, just remember that HBCUs are run like neo-colonial African countries and you'll be just fine. So, okay, and I grew up in the black church, so I know what it looks like to have an authoritarian regime. So I mean, it's none of it's unfamiliar. Of course. Now, I'll tell you y'all two quick stories and then we like I said, this won't take long at all. When I came down to interview for this position, I went looking for the people who I knew were on this faculty because it really wasn't about Howard. Their names get commingled with Howard, but when you begin to then observe them and know the stories behind it, you see this system of abuse. And part of the reason I feel the way I feel about that, and I see, you know, a lot of how these children are here, including his blood children, including Morale, you know how I feel about your father, man. Part of this is because of how they treat him. I'm like, yeah, that's it. I'll take a lot, but you not going. Anyway, so when I came, I went looking for Holly Greenman, Superman Young. I went looking for, Rod Walters. I went looking, because if they hire me here, that's what I'm thinking about. I'm gonna be hanging out with them. And so, don't keep this short. No, I am because I know. But I thought if I could be in the same place these cats are, because y'all remember when Sankofa came out, and he brought it to Indianapolis Black Expo. I mean, you see how Green looks like this. You get a chance to then sit and listen to how that's the. So the work where you work, man, that's the first story. The second story, I'm glad you came back for this. For everything he said, yes, he's endured a whole lot. This last cat, who I don't think is really around anymore, I ain't seen him. When he got the job, we had a faculty meeting. And so clearly the knives had come out. You know how these coup d'etats happen. So the guy before them, who I'm convinced there was a glitch in the machine because he actually knew the names of the people who drove the cars and cut the grass and stuff. This is a problem. So when they brought the new guy in, he had a meeting to talk to the faculty. Any questions? Now, our faculty's sitting there. You know how you are when you're in a situation like that. Ain't nobody gonna say nothing. So the elder stands up, says, I want to know what your plans are, because what happened to, you named Dr. Dubois, what happened to Dr. Dubois? Stand there. Okay, brother. Well, I'm gonna tell you that they're gonna come for you just like they came for me. I'm sitting there, President interim at the time, standing there looking like a whole auditorium of our colleagues, dead silent. Ty Green standing like a tree, telling this man, this is a cycle. What he just said, it's a variation of it. Don't get caught up in the game like you different there. When they come for you, and here we are in the aftermath of something happening. I'm going to retire. Okay, is this your choice? When they gonna come for you. So after you finish saying what he's gonna say, sit down, silence. So then I stood up and I said, I can't let my elder say something and not say something.
And I think that's where it went left. So my point is this. Oh, you get the last word. So you telling me?
Listen, I was very formal, respectful. After warning him, like, he's gonna get it too.
Yes.
But he called him a Negro.
Oh, well, I mean.
In that whole body meeting, the whole faculty, he called him. There's a whole lot of Negroes here that are da-da-da-da. I don't remember the whole thing. I was like, when I heard him call the guy Negro,
We all Negroes.
I said, oh shit, I don't want him to us. I don't want to be connected to him. No, I'm lying. I was very proud. I was proud of him. But I just want to say, Samiet, how many of you know The Choice, the book The Choice Samiet wrote? He was at Howard, mistreated under my nose. I came, a guy I respect, I read the book. When you think about Howard, Samiet, I came, he was disrespected. So for me, that's why I don't take it seriously, what they do to you individually. Then we did with my students a documentary film called After Winter, Sterling Brown. They treated him worse. I can never even fathom or compare anything what they did to this brother. He knows it, I know it. We're going to show his film that I did with the students here. I'm going to tell you. So
yes.
Sister, it's called After Winter, Sterling Brown. That's why I came back really to announce our event. Okay. I've never really done showing my own film, do retrospective of my work here and there. But we're going to do in our own house. I'm going to show Bush Mama and talk to you how it's done.
Come on.
Yes.
I'm going to do the Wilmington 10, USA 10,000. You have to see it. That's a documentary, and you say, when was it made, is what you're going to say. Wow. Again, with my students, I made that film in the 1980s, early 80s, or 78, we began shooting in North Carolina. And then I'm going to show Ashes and Embers and speak about, but if you like this whole thing, we're heading in the fall for film classes, script writing, directing. The thing I did other place, I'm going to do it in-house. Yeah. And so for me, this thing I'm doing is strictly for our area. What did I call the title?
Sankofa Film Academy.
No, the Academy, yeah, but Liberation Cinema. Okay, how to view cinema, how to read cinema is what's going to be. Because often we just watch film, but we want to go. When my wife and me opened this bookstore, we said, it's not only books our people have to read, we need to read images of how we are posed in an image. And like in any movie, how is it organized? Yeah. And so it's going to be like Liberation Cinema, but how to read and digest visual storytelling. So keep
sign up to our newsletter. Make sure you sign up, and then we'll keep you abreast of everything that's happening.
We're just now organizing the titles. It will be in 2 weeks or 3 weeks. We'll get going. Okay, and he's going to be talking after winter with Sterling Brown, him and me, and we're hoping his girlfriend will join us. I'm sorry, who's that? I don't know.
And with that, that's scene. This is yours.